We've been told since 1970, when the United States decided to wage war on fat, that eating too many calories will make us fat. And that story is part of the reason that most people can't lose weight. If you don't ask the right questions, Wellness Warrior, then you're never going to solve the problem that you're actually trying to solve. I was fat for several years, but I believed that counting calories was actually going to be the answer, like all of you. I counted calories and lost weight in my yo-yo dieting history. Problem, right? The weight always came, well, the weight came back. I always regained the weight. I lost so much weight over the course of, I would say, 10-ish years. Always came back. Now, if calorie counting was actually the answer, why did I repeatedly regain the weight that I lost? Now, I know most people are going to say, oh, it's because you didn't have the willpower to maintain the calorie deficit. You weren't strong enough not to eat the junk food. You couldn't control yourself. Okay, so I'm going to be honest, brutally honest here, because the only way that this stuff changes is if we're really fully honest about what actually happens. So, to be fully honest, there were times when I went to parties and I'd eat off plan. There were times where I went to restaurants and I'd eat out. So I'd have a cheat meal, right? That's what these things are called, right? We have a word for it in our dieting world. It's called cheating on your diet. And those cheat meals sometimes would lead to me eating 12 off-plan meals, 14 off-plan meals. You know what's happening now, right? I'm no longer doing the diet. Yes, I will acknowledge that has happened to me. It's part of the reason that I've yo-yo dieted for so many years. But what about when I stuck to my diet? So all those times in those years where I would create a new diet, this low calorie focused, I'm going to do the thing, I'm losing weight. And then, because I had quite a bit of weight to lose, while I was still eating properly, still in a deficit, that's what that means. I was eating properly, my weight stopped coming off. Worse, sometimes I began to gain weight again. How do we explain those scenarios, Wellness Warrior? Well, Dr. Fung speaks about this. We can't infinitely lose weight on a calorie deficit because, well, our body does not understand calories, first of all. He's spoken about this and spoken about it. He's trying to hammer this idea down. Our body doesn't have any calorie receptors. And so when we diminish calories, what our body sees is that there's insufficient energy coming in. We're not eating enough. And our body is like, oh no, danger. There's a problem happening. We're not getting enough energy to do all the stuff that we need to do. So our body, when we don't eat enough, changes what it's doing. It starts to play with the amount of energy we use to do other things, to do certain things, important things. It basically slows our processes, our bodily functions down because there's not enough energy to do all the bodily processes. It adjusts our metabolic rate, as we like to call it, and slows us to match the amount of energy that's coming in. Our body is smarter than us. Do we understand what he's actually explaining? Our body is so smart that it's going to if you want to call it, do the calorie math for us and say, not enough, but it's not doing calorie math. So I just want to make sure I say that properly. He's explained it over and over. We do not count, our body does not count calories. So it's doing the energy coming in and saying, it's looking at everything, all the food that we're eating. Are we giving it the tools it needs to do the jobs? No, we can't do the jobs, and it slows everything down. What that means is that if you eat less overall for several months, right, your body will expend less energy to stop you wasting away to nothing. So we're trying to force our body to lose weight by eating less food. And our body's going, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to need to hold on to this storage. As a matter of fact, we need to, if we can, create more storage, because this precious stuff that's coming in, we're only getting a little bit of it. This is so important for every wellness warrior to understand. If you want to heal your body and get to a proper weight, because, yeah, if you want to get to a proper weight, what you need to understand, what Jason has helped me to understand, Dr. Fung has helped me to understand, is that after about 6 months, your body has figured out, this is the amount of energy coming in. Okay. This is the amount of tools. So protein and fat coming in. Okay. And it slowed everything down. Slowed everything down. So let's say that you were one of those lucky people who can do 2 pounds a week. Don't forget, that's the max that they say you can safely lose per week. And let's say you're right up there at that max of 2 pounds per week. After 6 months, that's about 48 pounds you would have lost, right? So 48 pounds later, your body's like, nope, we can't keep doing this. And now your body has put you in a position where your weight stabilizes. What if you're like me and you had 80? At some points, I know I had even more than 80 pounds to lose because, yeah. But what if you had like 80 pounds to lose? What happens then? Well, you're stable, or even worse, like what happened to me a lot of times, your weight starts to rise again. How fun is that? So I went through 6 months of eating low calorie, not enjoying the food that I'm eating because low calorie, only to turn around and be gaining weight again. Dr. Fung is really trying to help us to understand that fasting is not the same as restricting what we eat. We need to understand this difference, because if we don't understand the difference, we keep expecting ourselves to be able to calorie count, restrict, and get to this healthy weight and stay at the healthy weight. And what I just said, I hope explains to you why we don't stay there. But let me go a little bit further, because when you eat nothing, what your body actually believes is that, oh, we didn't catch any food. Because we didn't catch any food, what your body is going to then want you to do is go out and catch some food. Because in the history of being us on this planet, that's what we normally would have had to do. I know most of us have lived in the world where we just have to jump in our car and go, or maybe in the bus, and go to the grocery store, and the poultry or the meat or the fish is in a fridge or a freezer, and we just put it in our cart and go and pay for it. We didn't have to run and chase or swim and chase that food at all. But in the history of being on this planet, this is new. This is completely new. Our body and our mind, our brain still expects that that's how food is gotten. So when we don't have enough to eat, so we haven't eaten anything, is what I'm talking about, then our body kicks into, oh, then we need energy. So it's going to let loose a little bit of sugar back into the blood. And we need mental acuity. So it's going to perk up our brain. And it's going to increase human growth hormone. It's going to give us the bodily tools we need, the energy Even though we haven't eaten, it's giving us energy. Go and catch some food. Very different than what happens when we eat not enough and it starts pulling energy back and conserving because we did catch something. It just was this really teeny tiny thing. And if this is what we've been able to catch for 6 months, my brain is thinking, this is all we're going to be able to catch for the next 6 years. Oh no, we need to be conserving. We need to slow down. These are hard times. Wellness warrior, there's so much food at my grocery store that I never have to be in a calorie deficit. But this is the message that we are giving to our body. It is so hard to fast when we eat garbage, highly processed foods, high sugar foods. When we eat garbage, our hormones get involved. Ghrelin increases and we're hungry all the time. And it almost seems like there's no leptin available in our body. That's not true. There is, but it's not pushing us to feel satiated. Matter of fact, when we are on diets, we are thinking about food more than when we're not dieting. And it drives us nuts, right? Because every time we smell something, every time we see something, and by the way, you see something a lot. If you watch television or YouTube or Netflix, when all these commercials that are playing now, and we're seeing food everywhere because they want us to see food everywhere because they want us eating, but that's another story for another day. We are constantly having food in front of our faces and therefore constantly being reminded that we're hungry because when I was dieting, I was hungry. We are not eating enough and therefore our body has high insulin, high ghrelin, low leptin, but that insulin, it's doing something, right? We are going to store energy on our bodies. We're pushed to eat and store energy. That's what's happening, Wellness Warrior. Dr. Fung explained that by trying to force our body to care about calories, we're ignoring that we have this amazing ability to fast, right? To skip meals, to not eat, to really just not eat. That fasting that we've done for since we've been on the planet, because we didn't have fridges before we invented fridges. And that meant that we ate the food and then we didn't have food. And then we ate the food and then we didn't have food. That's how it used to work. And we had this amazing ability to just skip a meal, or actually, it wasn't even skipping a meal. It was waiting till the next meal. So let's call it what it was. We would eat and then we would go about our business and we would, of course, hunt and we would do whatever we're doing. And then we would catch something else and we would eat. Now, if we had winter, we were not growing stuff, right? So all these places where people lived and there was winter, that meant for X number of months, there was snow all over the ground. Nothing was growing. We were only eating when there was an animal caught. So I just want to make sure that I'm crystal clear on this. He's right. Our body has an amazing ability to fast. Somehow eating nothing is easier than eating a little bit of diet food. And it's because that little bit of diet food is messing with our hormones. The question that we are not asking, that we absolutely need to ask, is what causes weight gain? And the answer to that question we've actually known for years, right? Insulin is absolutely necessary to store fat on the body. I clearly had insulin functioning properly in this photograph because you can see I had fat stored on my body. That's January 2018. I'm still asking the wrong question. How low should my calorie count be in order for me to lose weight? That's the question I'm asking in this picture. I'm not asking the right question yet. However, by the time I'm in this picture, I'm actually asking the right question. So there are 3 macronutrients: fat, protein, and carb. So sugar. Fat has the least impact on insulin. Protein has a moderate, I would even say low moderate impact on insulin. But those carbs that I used to eat had a huge impact on insulin, wellness warrior. Huge. So the impact of carbohydrates on insulin is so intense that your body begins to release insulin from the moment that your mouth tastes sweet. Can you imagine that? You put something sweet in your mouth, boom, insulin is being deployed. And I want us to really pause on this and understand what that means. Because even those diet foods are designed to taste delicious to us, which means what? They're sweet tasting. Diet candy, sweet tasting. Diet protein shakes, sweet tasting. Diet bars, protein bars and granola bars, sweet tasting. When we make oatmeal, we add sugar to it, or we sweeten it with fruit. Most fruit, sweet tasting. Do we see the problem? We are constantly putting things in our mouth, and that triggers insulin. Now, even if the sweet taste doesn't make it to our stomach. So they did an experiment where they had people swish sugar water around in their mouth and then spit it out. And what happened? Insulin was still deployed and sugar was still converted to fat and stored. If the sugar that you put in your mouth is artificial sweetener, it still happens. Insulin will be deployed, and the real sugar that was in your blood will be converted to fat and stored, even though no energy comes in to replace it. And do you know what happens in those scenarios, Wellness Warrior? I do, because I made the mistake during my keto lifestyle of allowing myself on 2 different occasions to drink a diet soda because I was thirsty in between meals. And when I drank that diet soda, at a period of time where I was normally not hungry, I became extremely hungry, ravenously hungry, and ended up like feeling horrible while waiting for my meal. When you drink diet soda, your blood, your fat your sugar in your blood gets converted into fat store. So again, this is not helping us to accomplish the goal that we want to accomplish, the goal of weight loss, the goal of better health. Knowing the impact of carbohydrates on your body is the answer to weight loss. And the impact of carbohydrates on your body is increasing insulin. You eat carbs, insulin goes up. If you allow yourself to continue to eat carbohydrates, so sugar, so sweet things, right? If you continue to allow yourself to eat these things, you're going to keep struggling. We need to understand that carbohydrates are what impacts our body, right? And if you keep eating sugary things, your weight will continue to rise, right? If you keep believing that it's the calories that matter more than the carb count, your body has no choice but to continue to store those carbs away as fat. If you continue to believe that sweet flavors don't matter, you're going to continue to store those carbohydrates in your body away as fat. You're going to continue to be hungry. You're going to continue to have high ghrelin levels. You're going to continue to have low leptin levels. You will continue to crave junk food. You will continue to crave processed foods, sweet foods like fruit, high sugar foods like French fries. They don't taste sweet. Why do we crave them? Because they're still high in sugar, right? I used to love French fries. As a matter of fact, I used to say French fries were my favorite vegetable. And that's just, I mean, I look back on it, how silly that is. But I used to have French fries whenever I could have it as a side dish. That would always be my choice. Bread, another one. I would, if like these, they don't taste sweet, but they're so high in sugar that we just think we like bread. The more of these foods you eat, the more your ghrelin is high, your leptin's not balanced, right? Your leptin and ghrelin are not balanced. Your insulin is not in the right level. It's too high, and you're off chasing Wellness Warrior, and you're overeating, and your body is storing. And even if you're doing one of those diet scenarios where your calories are really low, but the carbohydrates are really high, because carbohydrates, 4 grams of carb, I'm sorry, 4 calories per gram of carb versus fat, you've got that, what is it, 9? Protein, I think, is 7. So they just feel like, oh, if you just focus on carbohydrates, you don't lose weight. It is actually the carbohydrates that's pushing the weight gain. Today is an important day for you. Today, you're either going to leave this video and decide to eat healthy, low carbohydrate, low sugar, right? And work towards your health goals, work towards your weight goals, or you're going to pay money to some company for processed garbage that's making you sick and fat. You're going to keep buying all the fruit and the vegetables and believing that that low calorie count is going to help you, and it's going to keep you sick and fat. And by the way, it's going to keep the door open to eating the processed foods because the high carbohydrates are still there. You're going to keep yourself unhappy. Eating the low calorie vegetables and fruit diet, they're okay for us to do because it keeps the door open to the processed garbage, because our brain is pushing us towards carbohydrate. And eventually they know we're going to eat that stuff anyways. And by the way, the processed carbohydrate vegetables and fruits, they're cheaper, right? They charge us so much for this stuff, and it doesn't do our health any good. And it keeps us in the medical system and all the things. It keeps us where they want to keep us, Wellness Warrior. I was where you were 7 years ago. And I can tell you that I had no idea that good health and happiness were the result of knowing that carbohydrates fuel weight gain. I didn't understand that. I didn't know that fruit. I honestly thought fruit was the healthiest thing I could eat. And I blame myself for hating fruit. That was the reason that I was fat. I blame myself. It's like, if I could just eat fruit like everybody else and put down the chocolate bars, it wouldn't have made a bit of difference. I have a lot of people in my family that like vegetables. I have a lot of friends that like fruits and vegetables. They eat them all the time. They're overweight. We know that it doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. Maybe if you're one of those few people that just eats the lowest of low glycemic, and that's where you've always lived your world, in the fruits and vegetable world. But for the rest of us, it doesn't change anything. Now that I know that, and I truly understand that meat, fish, poultry, and eggs are food that I understand and know that information. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs, that's real food. Now that I know that, and I understand that everything else that I put on my plate, that you put on your plate, that the world puts on its plate is for entertainment, for fun, right? It's a distraction. I no longer entertain myself with garbage. And I'm encouraging you to do the same. Eat real food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs. Put as little garbage on your plate as possible, right? If you're going to put any kind of vegetation, low glycemic, the lowest glycemic you can possibly choose and eat, because that's the way that you're going to help your body to heal. That's the way you're going to get your weight to be at the right place. That's the way you get your life back, by putting this stuff down. Wellness Warrior, I'm looking forward to any questions, comments that you have for me. I'm so excited to speak to you guys today. Karen, hello. How are you doing? Did I start cold turkey? Actually, let me make this a little larger, make it easier for myself to read. So, did I start cold turkey or slowly incorporate more meat into my diet until I reached the full keto? So, Karen, I'm very happy to have you here. And I'll tell you that I'm one of those people, I'm all or nothing. I jumped right in. I started immediately on April 18th, 2018. I just started my keto lifestyle and I haven't turned back since. I've had stumbles, so I'm not going to say that I was perfect. And the stumbles showed me that, yeah, you need to stick to eating healthy all the time, because if you don't, you get pulled off the rails. So compare this to my spouse, Pat, who's in the chat, and I'm going to get to him in a minute. Pat, what he did was he slowly tapered down. He's one of the people that can do that. But um, what I remember of his situation was that by the time he got to, like, all he had left was bread. And for like weeks, he struggled with that. I was like watching him struggle. I was like, sweetheart, you just need to do it. You need to pull that Band-Aid off and just stop buying it. And eventually there was a week that he didn't need to have bread in the house because it was just us, and we just didn't have any bread in the house, and he was able to get past it. And now we can have bread in the house for the kids and it's fine. But it was a hard thing. So you need to know your personality, Karen, is what I'll say. If your personality is such that you could slowly taper down, do that. If your personality is such that you need to just do it, just jump in like I did, do that. Now, one thing I will say is the reason that I'm really happy that I decided to jump right in was this. On day 3, 4, and I think 5, I lived withdrawal. I don't think that I would have lived withdrawal, or maybe just not in the same way, had I tapered down and then cut it out. Because Pat didn't seem to live withdrawal, but doing it the way that he did it. I'm the person, though, that living withdrawal helped me, because first of all, it helped me to see that I wasn't in control of what I was eating. And Pat and I had very different experiences of reintroducing. I never reintroduced carbohydrates back into my life at that higher level. So let's say more than 20 grams. Never touched that, because living that withdrawal, it was a punch in my face, first of all, to be addicted to something. I lived my entire life understanding addiction because of people in my life that I had grown up around, that I saw what addiction did to them. And I was like, there's no way that I would ever let so insulted to realize that a company or a bunch of companies tricked me into being addicted to something without me knowing. First of all, I hated that. I really did. And so therefore, getting that out of my life was priority number 1. And so all that being said, I still end up with struggles, because as with everything in life, the more you try to do something and you think you have it under control, as soon as you think you have it under control, the door gets opened for the possibility of making mistakes. And so For example, there was an occasion where I got out of control eating nuts. And it's not something that I thought would have happened, but it did happen. Like nuts were positioned in our keto community as something that you can eat, and they're harmless, they're healthy, and I now know better. Again, any plant comes with risks. Little Miss Tiny Cannon, I believe that says. So, question, I'm confused. I have a sister and everyone else saying, God said we are not to eat meat. I have a sister and everyone else saying God said we're not. So they're misunderstanding Little Miss Tiny Cannon. First of all, I feel like I'm going to talk to this because I've heard this so often. I would just encourage you to point them back to why Cain and Abel. It's the very first book of the Bible. So like it frustrates me that people want to focus their attention on being confused. The very first book of the Bible, the reason Cain and Abel got into their problem, so why Cain was so jealous of Abel, was because Cain was the one in charge of tending the crops, and Abel was the one in charge of tending the animals. And Cain made an offering to God of vegetables, so vegetation, and God said, it was good. But he didn't give Cain as much praise as he gave Abel, who made an offering of meat, because that's what we're supposed to be eating. So right at the very first book of the Bible. Now go to the second part. God does tell us that we have dominion over everything, but having dominion over everything doesn't mean we're supposed to eat everything. There's plants on this planet for the animals to eat, so that those animals process that vegetation so that we get it, like so we get it, right? Like they eat the plants and then we eat them, and so they process those nutrients so that we get it too. But doctor I mean, almost every doctor now, if I want to do this one, Baker, Chafee, Barry, Berg, like all the doctors have helped me to understand that as the animal eats all the vegetation that it eats, when we eat the animal, we're getting everything the same way. That the reason that carnivores in the wild, so lions and hyenas and all the other kind of all the other kind, although bears are omnivores, they eat fruits, but all the other carnivores, the reason that they don't suffer vitamin deficiencies is because the animals that they're eating have eaten the vegetation. I really hope that helps you clarify that for you, Little Miss Tiny Cannon. And thanks for stopping by. I feel like your name is new, or you just haven't spoken before. So I'm glad to have you here. Good morning, Pat. And thanks for letting everyone. Can the Wellness Warriors please do me another favor as well? If you wouldn't mind putting, hitting that like button, I'd really appreciate it. And if you know anybody who would like to be here in this live stream, send them the link so they can join and I can answer their questions, because I'm going to answer as many of these questions as I possibly can. And I want to just take a second right now to thank the supporters of the channel, because you guys do help me to be able to take an hour or two during my day to answer questions and talk to all of you guys. And if any of you that are watching right now would like to become a supporter, the link is in the description. So thank you very much, Sherry and Susan and Jeffrey and Miriam and Nordstrom's Tom. I really do appreciate all of you guys for being here and being supporters. Getting back to our comments. Michael R. Wright, hello from Seoul, Korea. Wow, thank you for joining from there. I always like to see where people are from. So let me know like where you guys are from. Zana Taylor, good morning from Texas. Love your talks, Violet. You're always bring good information. Zana, I appreciate that. And I love that you're here. And I want to give as much good information as I can. Let me know what else I can share with you if you have a question or something. France La Rebelle, hello from Canada. Oh, another Canadian. Nice to have you here. Bonjour, France from Quebec. France, is it Quebec? Okay, it's that question. Let's see. Oui, bonjour, Patrick. Love it. Conversations. So, see, Zana Taylor. Insight for low to non existent thyroid. I went keto, then to carnivore, and I'm now shedding hair like crazy. Scary. What I know is that, first of all, Dr. Bright and Dr. Barry have both commented that thyroid, like having a thyroid or not, isn't a reason not to do keto or carnivore. I feel like I agree with them in the sense that eating healthy is always the right answer. So I want to start there. Eating healthy is always the right answer. The thing that I want to say is that you might need more fats in your diet. I feel like that's part of the problem, is that we undereat our fat because we come to keto and carnivore from standard diet. And in standard diet, that story of carbohydrates, 4 calories, fat, 9 calories, often equals we aren't eating enough fat to begin with. And what we really do need to do is eat more fat. That's part one. So let me go a little bit further. We need to eat more fat because our hormones are made of fat, and especially made of cholesterol. And so now our body will make cholesterol. So it's hard to be low on cholesterol unless you're taking things artificially to lower your cholesterol. Again, something that all the doctors are discouraging. Taking medications that lower cholesterol is not a great idea because we absolutely need cholesterol. That's why our body makes it. But the other thing that Dr. Bright has been helping me to understand, and Dr. Barry, those are the two doctors I feel like they're talking about it the most, is that we need iodine. And so I recently started adding iodine, and I feel like my overheat, so my hot flashes are much better. And because of course I'm in that age range right now that I'm I don't even know if I'm fully in menopause or if I'm still in peri. Have to go back and look at my schedule to see when was the last. But anyways, so when you are in this scenario, your body still needs to make hormones. And if we don't eat the things that allows our body to keep making hormones, it's going to struggle. And one of the things that we need is iodine to make hormones. So I've been upping um the iodine because I really want to make sure that my body's able to do everything it needs to do to keep my mood stable, keep my all my body functioning well. Because the other thing that we don't think about, we think about hormones to do with mood, but our hormones also signal a bunch of processes in our body that talk about autophagy and cell repair, so many things, right? So everything that's in our body, everything our body makes, everything our body wants us to consume, all of these things are for a purpose. And when we allow processed garbage to be what we consume more than real food, we are interfering with the process that our body is trying to actively um maintain in a positive way, if I could say it like that. That's what I would definitely say. So okay. The next, let's see. Okay. Nope. Trying to look. Okay, Lynn. Hello, Lynn. Oh, wait. Sorry, Pat. That was an actual comment. I was buying bread and it was spoiling in the fridge by the end. Yes, I remember by the end. Thank you for reminding me about that. By the end, you threw away. So this is another problem that I have. I hate throwing food away. And although I've stopped calling bread food, because to me that's just garbage and I don't mind throwing that away, vegetation for some people is better than having nothing. And so it bothers me to buy vegetation and throw it in the garbage. I'd rather just not buy it. I'm very selective on any vegetation that I buy for the kids so that if I buy it, it's what I think they're going to use. And I only buy enough that I think they can get through it. Because, yeah, it's very frustrating to me to know that that kind of stuff went to the garbage. I want I want there to be a better use of things that come into the house, if that makes sense. Hello, Lynn. So I went cold turkey too. I didn't know how else to do it. And if I had to taper down, I would have never made it. So there's a lot of us like that, that just when we try to do anything, like we get to that last little bit and then we're caught in the cravings and it's still enough to keep it alive. So here's part of the problem though, because when I need everyone who is in that taper phase and you've got that little bit of carbohydrate there that's just still coming in, what I want every wellness warrior to understand is that when you've tapered and then that little bit of carbohydrate there that's keeping you away from being in a ketogenic state, what's happening is the carb count that you are currently eating is high enough to trigger your insulin resistant reaction. And that means that that little bit of sugar, so let's say that you're at 35 grams. 35 grams, even though it's under the 50 that's typically considered keto diet, if it's more than enough to keep you out of ketosis, your body is storing fat. So that little bit extra, that 15 grams, is causing you, even though you're eating so very little carbohydrate compared to what you were doing before, because 35 is 100 times less than what I started at with my 350 to 450, because that's what I was really eating, depending on the day. 350 grams of sugar to 450 grams of sugar was what I was eating in a day when I did the math. And the funny thing is, Wellness Warrior, that the math was always there. It was right in front of my nose. I just didn't know to look for it, because every food calculator that we use has the number there. It's just whether is it showing to you or not, and are you paying attention to it or not. But when I looked at the actual number and saw 350, I was in shock. And the days that I saw 450, I was 454 grams of sugar is a pound. The fact that I was eating almost a pound of sugar every day doesn't surprise me that my weight was rising every year. Of course, it's going to rise every year. 450 grams of sugar in a day is ridiculous. It's not coming from table sugar. This is why we don't notice it. This is why we're not paying enough attention to it. It's coming from French fries. It's coming from rice. It's coming from pasta. It's coming from bread. For those of us who eat fruit, that wasn't my story, but for those of you who do, it's coming from bananas, very high in sugar. It's coming from oranges, very high in sugar. It's coming from all the fruits that taste deliciously sweet and when I eat strawberries, because one of the few fruits that I would allow in, because I would drizzle or cover them in sugar. Honestly, we just don't understand how much sugar we are eating. If you drink regular soda, the amount of sugar in there, we just don't understand where the sugar is coming from. So having that little bit of sugar that's coming in, and I'm insulin resistant, I'm storing fat anyway. So I've gotten myself all the way down. In my case, anything over 18 grams of sugar was causing me to store, because it was, and not even because, and it was also causing me to have huge inflammation reactions, because that was part of my story. So can I just say that the horror story that was me living in pain and agony and being overweight all got solved by understanding that, first of all, carbohydrates, so sugar, are the important thing. But second of all, I can actually only eat less than 18. If I touch 18, I'm having reactions. If I touch 18, I'm chasing again. You need to know your number, Wellness Warrior. You need to know what it is. Renee Brown, good morning from Florida. Thank you. So you have warm weather while we're chilling up over here in Montreal. I'm holding steady and staying strong on my journey. Thanks for the research. I really appreciate. I like doing the research. It helps me to stay on track. The more I understand, the better I do. And then sharing it with you, I think, is a great bonus and benefit because I have this goal in my head of having 1,000 people whose name I can read that says that I help them accomplish this goal of eating healthy every single day. So I've already started my list. I have, the last time I checked, I have 16 people on the list. And every time somebody says it, I take their name down. If you're one of those people, I want to know about it because, and don't just say it to say it. I have to have been part of the reason that you're on track. I don't want just to say, oh, I helped you a little bit. I want to be part of the reason that you stay on track. Because to me, that is worth everything. Because I stay on track because I know what it's like to be in pain. I know what it's like to be lied to, and I don't want anybody else to have that. But that means that somehow this truth needs to reach you. And you need to see this truth and say, hey, I learned something. So I look forward to meeting more people. That's the truth. Just listening. Hello from Kentucky. Well, I'm glad you're listening. And I look forward to the day that you start applying. And if you've already started applying, let me know. Blytheville, Arkansas. Nice to have you here. So Karen is grateful has another question. Are you a teacher by profession? Because you're great. Knowledgeable speaker, very informative. I'm not a teacher by profession, although I have taught. One of my first jobs ever, I was a nursery school teacher. While I was studying for my profession, I was a nursery school teacher. My second job ever was working for the government, teaching parents. So still working with young people, teaching parents how to better help their kids. Still didn't study as a teacher though. Just like I do feel like I'm good at teaching, if that makes sense. So France La Rebelle, sorry. Do you think if we stop coffee, we could feel dizzy? When you stop coffee, most people have some kind of withdrawal problem because, again, coffee is another one of those things that is addictive. So I know that myself, like when I had at one point, I don't even remember why I'd stopped having coffee, but I did for a period of time. Was it a challenge? I don't even remember. Maybe Pat will chime in on why did I stop coffee at one point? And did you do it with me, Pat? I can't remember. But anyways, I had a headache for maybe 2 days, but then I was back to it and I was fine. But I can't remember why I'd stopped coffee. Actually, speaking of coffee, you just reminded me of something, France. This past weekend, Pat and I went out of town, and we were looking for a breakfast restaurant. Well, we found a really lovely breakfast restaurant, and their coffee was amazing. The reason that this is reminding me, but that's not the story I want to tell, although their coffee was amazing. What I want to tell is that the evening we went to a restaurant, and I feel like I want to tell this story because I think it talks to the part where we're so afraid of doing keto or carnivore because we don't know what to eat and we don't believe that we'll be able to have celebrations without having like fun cake or some kind of fun food to eat. So Pat and I went on our anniversary this year and we just picked the restaurant and we didn't call ahead. We just made sure that it had steaks on the menu and pork chops on the menu. That was our only criteria. And we arrived to the restaurant. And what we did, as usual, we do this at most restaurants now, is the waiter arrives and we say, okay, we're ready to order because we've already looked at the menu. And Pat begins to explain to the waiter what we want. And you started with my meal. So he says, you have pork on the menu and it has a caramel sauce. Yeah, we don't want the sauce. And as he starts saying, like, he said that first sentence, and the waiter was like, oh, wait, you're changing the menu? And he starts with the list of, I'm going to have to verify with my chef and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Wellness warrior. The reason I'm bringing this up today, and I wanted to make a note to talk about it in today's live stream, is because people are so sure that waiters and waitresses are so sure that whatever request the person is about to make is going to be complicated. He didn't even just listen and let Pat finish what he was saying. He interrupted him as soon as he said, we don't want the caramel sauce. So what was funny about so Pat continued, he said, okay, hold on. He says, cooked in butter with a bit of salt. That's what we want. And then the steak, same thing, cooked in butter with a bit of salt. On neither meal do we want any of the side dishes. And then he pointed out that for the pork chop, which is what I was having, it was too small a piece. We would need two meals without the side dishes. We fully walked in knowing we're paying for 2 meals, even though we were only going to have just the meat. So I was only going to have just the meat. That's what we want. So the waiter goes on to start saying, oh my gosh, but we're going to have to charge you for 2 meals. And that's what I just ordered. I said, I want 2 meals on the same plate, but don't give me any. So the funny thing, and why I wanted to talk about this wellness warrior is, the waiter was acting like we were not expecting to pay for what we were ordering, even though we were modifying it to make it not fancy. We're making it simpler. But second of all, it like the chef had no problem. I mean, honestly, all he was doing was taking a piece of meat and putting butter on and putting salt. Now, we were able to make it a bit more fun because they had this fancy plate thing that they do where they serve your meal on bacon grease that was like in the oven. They take it from the oven, so it's been baking. The dish is like ridiculously hot, but they just keep plates in the oven at like, I can't even remember what degree Pat said it was, but it was still spitting when it came out to the table. The plates were that hot. So it was a fun meal and it tasted delicious. Could have used a little bit more salt, but that was okay. It tasted delicious. One of those fancy restaurants where there's not even salt on the table because they're just that confident that the way they cook it is going to be perfect. And I will say it was delicious, despite the fact that it could have used a little bit more salt. My point is, we celebrated our anniversary without having one garbage anything. There was no sugar in our weekend of celebrating our anniversary. It's possible. We picked a restaurant that looked nice and like had fancy options, and then we made the fancy options suit what we wanted rather than trying to just go with what they present because we don't want to be a bother. I'm a fan of being a bother because me being a bother means I wake up the next morning feeling amazing. So absolutely, I was a bother. And in the end, I know that the chef was like, yeah, no skin off my nose. This is simpler because it was simpler. All he had to do was make sure he didn't overcook our meat. It's perfection. And by the way, they came back to us so many times to tell us how great it was. Like to ask us if it was this great? Was this good? And we were just like, it was perfection because it was. It tasted amazing, which is what we wanted. Hey, not sure if Vi covered that already, but please come and join us. We are ready, our new community. And thank you for reminding people, Pat. Yeah, you can check out the new community. I'm looking forward to meeting new people in there. And there's more changes coming because we're setting up something really cool that is going to allow me to communicate even more with you guys. So I'm like really excited about this. But for right now, it's this. This is stage 1. And I'm kind of hoping that by January, stage 2 is going to be there because anyways, the conversations are going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to being able to talk to you without the issues of YouTube. I'll put it like that. I unfortunately have to go prepare. Oh, I'll see you later, Pat. Karen is grateful. I'm also from Arkansas. Oh, nice to see you from Arkansas. Yes, you're helping me greatly. Is that for real? Oh, Karen, I'm going to add you to the list. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if I have you on the list. If I don't have you on the list, Karen, because I feel like I've seen your name before, but maybe not. I'll add you to the list. Or did I see it earlier just now? Russell Nicholson, hello. Nice to have you here. Paulette Stansel, do you use an app helping you keep on track? Yes, I do. So Paulette, I'm a fan of free apps. I know there's a lot of people that like to pay for their apps, but I don't think that we need as much detail as the paid versions pull us down. Like I don't want to be pulled down a rabbit hole of tracking things that I don't need to track. So there's a few apps that I do use. I'll start with the food app. I think that's what you're talking about. I use Chronometer. I almost forgot the name of the app for a minute there. I use the free version of Chronometer. I think at one point Pat had upgraded to the paid version, and he was like, "It's not worth it." And I think he's back to the free version as well. So, Chronometer, the reason that I use that one is that it does allow you to go in and say grams of carb instead of percentages. There's a lot of tracking apps that will only let you track percentages. The problem I have with that is that there are some days when I was doing my keto lifestyle, and I know some of you are still doing keto, so I'm going to say this for everyone listening. There were some days that when I was doing my keto lifestyle, when I would enter information into, like, let's say I did a lot of food that day. So let's say I had, a meat-based pizza, for example, which is something I used to make. The crust, everything, the entire thing is pizza. Is meat. The only thing on it that's not meat is the cheese, which is the only dairy. And the sauce. And I wasn't using tomato sauce because I react to that. I was using a pesto, but like it was a green pesto something. So that's what I was using. So when I was making that, and I no longer make it because I don't eat veg, so I don't have any sauce to put on it. When I was making that, what I was doing was I was tracking everything, and my total percentage of like incoming was so high that so calorie count was so high. If I was trying to do this by percentage of like what percent is fat, what percent is, there's no way. Like I would have had the ability to put so much more cheese on than I should have been putting because I'm not tracking only carbohydrate. I'm tracking total energy. So I always want to track total carbohydrate so that it maxes me. And in my case, it was maxing me at that point at 10 grams of carbohydrate. So that's how much cheese I was able to put. It is what it is. So I didn't have a lot of cheese on my pizza, but it tasted delicious nonetheless. I hope that. Oh, so the other apps that I use, the other app. So I do have a weight app. So I don't bother putting my weight in Chronometer except for when my weight changes, because that would obviously impact the numbers in terms of like what's going on there. But again, for me, the only number in Chronometer I actually care about is my carb count. My protein count, I try to keep my protein at the right amount. And so what's the definition of right amount as far as I'm concerned? You're supposed to be, according to Dr. Lehman, for women, eating about a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if I was a person whose lean body mass is supposed to be 110 pounds, let's say, then I should be eating 110 grams of protein So that means that I need to eat enough meat that would give me 110 grams of protein. So that'd probably be more than a pound for sure of meat to get 100 grams at 10 grams of protein. And that's the way that I've been doing things. And so I don't need to focus my attention on like I don't need to focus my attention on that, if that makes sense. All I do is focus on keeping my carbs low. I know I always try to eat as much protein as I'm supposed to eat. The amount varies. It might be like for my number, I can't remember what my number is right now, but it might be 10 under to over. I have specific meals. My ground pork days, my ground meat days is 500 grams of meat. My pork chop days, I believe, is 400 and some odd, 400 grams of meat, 450 grams of meat. When I do eggs and sausage, or eggs and like egg, sausage, bacon is usually what I do, then it's like, I can't remember it. I think it's 10 bacon, like 2 sausage. Like there's numbers there that I have calculated, and the eggs are scrambled so that I get back the fat that came out of my meats. So there's numbers that I have that I've done the math that my protein will be around the number, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So like I'm trying to remember to vary the number. Actually I think my eggs day, the number is lower. So it's like 300 or something. That's the day that I have like the least amount of protein in my diet, because I'm trying to get the number lower, because you want to vary. Every once in a while, you want to hit a low protein amount day and fat amount day. Like you want to just have a little bit less coming in, just to have your body not be so used to always having the exact right amount. All that to say that I allow myself most times to get the right amount. I even allow myself to get more. So if I'm hungry, I'll just eat. I never stop myself from eating. As a matter of fact, on this trip, so to tell you the rest of the story, so day one, we went to the fancy restaurant. By day two, the evening, we were back home. And so we did eat breakfast, quote unquote breakfast. It was around 2, I think, or maybe 1-ish. I can't remember what time it was. Maybe it was like 1-ish. We had breakfast after being out and about and checking out the town we were in. And then when we got home, we still had supper. And it was and for me, it was a full supper. So I had eggs and bacon and sausage out. And they cooked our stuff in butter only. We made the request. They said no problem. And then that evening I had my normal supper. So 500 grams of ground, and by the way, in that supper, I still had more eggs and more bacon. So like I always allow myself, if I was hungry that day and I ate, we did a lot of running around and walking, and we just had a great time, and we were very busy that day. And at the end of the day, I was hungry again. So I ate again. I ate a full meal. So Pat is answering, and he says, stopping coffee. Oh, I think it used to be when we were doing a cleanse. Remember those? Oh, was it during a cleanse? Okay, it might have been. So that's going back really far into the Wayback Machine. But I do remember having headaches during those periods where I didn't have coffee. William Thurman. Hello. Can I substitute water or juice days for high carb days? What I would so what I'm going to pause and say is high carb days. I don't even understand what that means. If you are doing a high carb day, I would encourage not doing a high carb day at all, because high carb is going to stimulate insulin. Stimulating insulin equals fat storage. First of all, high carb days will also stimulate insulin resistance, which will stimulate inflammation release. High carb days, that shouldn't be a thing as far as I'm concerned. Like I would never encourage a person to do a high carb day, because that's harming your body. Look at the wrong camera. Sorry. That's harming your body. You don't want to harm your body ever, William. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your body is getting protein and it's accompanying fat. So that's why earlier in this video, and maybe you missed that part, I said what is actually food is meat, fish, poultry, eggs. Everything else we put on our plate is for fun. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs. So if you're going to eat veg, understand that you're doing that for entertainment, and then keep the carbohydrate count as low as possible. So now I'm going to go to the juice days. I wouldn't juice anything. If you're going to eat a vegetable, eat the vegetable whole. If you're going to eat, I don't encourage fruit, but if you're going to eat fruit like avocado, olives, or berries, maybe eat them whole. When we juice things and when we dehydrate things, so dried fruit, we allow ourselves to be able to eat more of them. And the intensity of the sweetness is higher. And so our body just has a bigger insulin reaction, right? So I wouldn't encourage that. So it makes me believe, though, what you're telling me. Can I substitute water or juice? So you're saying, can I substitute water? I'm not sure. So I would love for you, and I see you're still here, to ask me that question or reword that question, because I'm not sure if I answered your question. Why were you having a high carb day? So is this like something that you're doing to try to push weight loss? I'm trying to understand. So if you were trying to lose weight by having high carb, so that would probably mean that you were trying to do low calorie. And if I'm guessing that correctly, if that's what was going on, I'm really, my entire video today was based on the idea, put calorie count down. That is what my entire video, the goal of what I was trying to teach today, was for everybody to put calorie count down. Your body does best with fat and protein. And maybe I didn't make that clear enough, because fat has the least insulin rise when it comes to storing fat, and protein has the second least, and it's actually quite low, because your body doesn't want you to store protein. Your body wants to use protein in its processes of building, repair, and action taking, and like your body uses protein to keep us in our healthy state, to keep our body functioning correctly. So I love this question, William. Thank you, because I feel like you helped me to see that maybe I wasn't clear enough. But you know what, guys? If I'm not clear enough, I will make another video. Bombard me in the comments at the end of this. If this wasn't clear enough, I will make another video. If I need to say this more clearly, I will say it more clearly, because my goal is for every single one of you to be able to go to any place, whether it's a restaurant like Pat and I did the other day, to a birthday party, to wherever you go, and know what I can eat and what will cause my body to start storing fat. Because I've been where you were, where I'm eating nuts thinking this is healthy. There's no problem to eat nuts, right? And then next thing you know, they're causing me to chase. By the way, when the nuts were causing me to chase, what was really interesting about it is they tasted sweet to me. It was another thing that I noticed that had happened at some point, is that those nuts that originally tasted like nuts tasted so sweet. So like we need to understand that our mind, our brain will show us the problem, because nuts tasting sweet. Now that I understand the rule, if something tastes sweet, your body is storing. Now that I understand the rule, and then when I start to apply it to it, but the nuts taste sweet, and now I find myself chasing, and it is what helped me to realize, oh my gosh, I pulled myself back into kicking, like, so I wasn't in ketosis, and my insulin was out of control, and I was chasing, right? And once I understood that, I was able to take nuts out of my diet. I want you guys to have this data so that forever going forward, no matter what situation you're in, you know what's healthy to eat and you know what's not healthy to eat. And you know how to verify. If I feel like this, something went wrong, right? In my case, if I feel any kind of inflammation, so joint pain, like soreness, something went wrong. In my case, if I see the scale rising, which doesn't happen very often, I usually have the inflammation first. But if I did see the scale rising, I'm also going to realize something went wrong, especially if the scale is rising and not because I want it to. Going back to the apps, another app that I do use is a scale. So I have a scale with the connected app. I like that app. It's called Renfro, I believe. And I like that app because not only does it tell me my weight, but it tells me stuff about my body composition. Not so much that I'm looking at it from the perspective that the information it's giving me is spot on. I'm more looking at it from the perspective of the change over time. So because I started using it, I was already at goal weight, but what I was more interested in was internal changes. So for example, now that I really took all the vegetation out of my diet, how is my fatty liver and like the visceral fat, like the fat around my organs and whatever. And it's been pretty cool. And I'm probably at some point going to make a video about this, of being able to see the changes that are happening, right? And to see this what stays stable and what does change. The other thing that I do, the same app, it has multiple different parts to it. And so I was able to buy a way to measure my different points of my body. So my biceps, my triceps, like my whatever, you can measure whatever parts you want. And I've been tracking those. Reason is that there's another thing that I've said a lot. We will be in scenarios where our weight can completely stay the same, but our body composition is changing. For the longest time, I've noticed that my weight is the same, but I'll put on different things and like my body composition is different, right? Like some things are looser than other things. Like for example, I'm wearing a pair of pants right now. Can I even show you guys? Can I show? Yeah. So these pants, like they used to be tight going back in my history. I remember like I hadn't worn them for years. And then at some point I was wearing them. They're still a little bit tight. And now I wear them and they feel just great. They're fine. Like they're not tight. They're not loose. They just feel great. There's stuff like that where we get, and these pants have no stretch. That's part of the reason I notice it. Because you have some jeans, they stretch. And so you can't really tell, like, okay, yeah, like they fit, but they always kind of fit because they stretch. These pants, I have a pair. I love them so much. I have two pairs. I have this beige pair and then I have a blue pair. Because when I first got them, I just loved they were such a nice look. Because, we have this tendency towards tapered leg. And I mean, I got these pants. So these are one of the pants from the vault, I'll call it. Because like I got these pants, I was probably in my maybe 30s, I would say. Either late 20s or early 30s when I bought them. And I just wanted a nice straight pair of pants that I could wear to work. And yeah, like these things I notice. So I started to do measurements to say like, oh, maybe that's like there's changes that are always happening. And just because I don't check, I'm not knowing that these other changes are happening. And so I've been tracking that and it's been really interesting to see. And hopefully, again, I do feel like at some point I'll very likely make a video about it. And thank you very much that you enjoyed the before and afters. I thought it would be interesting for you guys to see like what my trajectory was. And like what's really interesting to me is that like so I started keto in April of 2020. And it's funny because the only image that I was able to find, let me just go back to those images. The only image that I was able to find that year. So this is this this is April, this is January 2018. I said 2020. January 20 I started keto April 20th, 2018. And so this was the only image I was able to find from 2018 and it was just after Christmas, right? And then the next image that I have, this is what happens when you're a parent, right? You're taking pictures of everybody else and nobody's taking pictures of you. The next image I have is playing with my pup. Oh, you can't see me anymore, but playing with my pup here. I'll put myself on the side. And this is July 2018. And as you could see, like my weight is so quickly regulating, right? So this is July. I believe this is also July, I believe, but you could see like how quickly this is the end of July, I believe. And then this is finally September when I'm at goal. I'm just it's amazing to me how quickly I was able to get to that point. But at the same time, knowing what I know now, it's not amazing to me that I was that quick. So you know what I mean? It's one of those situations where once you know what you know, everything makes sense. By just taking those carbohydrates down to the point that my body was able to do what it's wanting to do. So I want to be clear on that. I didn't put my body in a position where it was managing. I put my body in the position where it could do what it wanted to do. Why am I no longer eating carbohydrates? Because as my body got to that place where it was able to do what it wanted to do, it showed me more. And then it showed me more. And then, so when your body just keeps showing you things, if you actually listen, I honestly believe that most people would end up in a story where they eat less carb than they think they were going to be eating. So you might start this process saying, yeah, I'm going to do keto and I'm always going to do 20 grams. But if you really listen to your body, you might end up in a scenario where you're doing 15. You might end up in a scenario where you're doing 10. You might end up like me, where you're just not doing any at all. But you're likely to find yourself in a scenario where, because you're listening, your body keeps showing you, yeah, that's not necessary. Stop doing that. Put that down. Because how does it show me that? It shows me that by reacting when I do have it. And when you feel good, it's not fun to react. It just reminds you of how bad it used to feel. Because when you do have that reaction, it feels big because you haven't had it in months. Even if it's the same reaction you've always been having. It's like you get a cut and it starts healing, and you know, like cuts, they hurt when they first happen, but then as they healed, it's like it feels better and you just kind of forget about it. But when you get a new cut, it feels huge, like the first one, right? Because you're back to that position. It just happened and it doesn't feel good. I'm glad to hear that, William. I really am happy to hear that it's going to be less from now on. I think that's what we all need to be healthy. And you said, no, just falling off the wagon, like going out with friends and not sticking to the plan. Okay. Yeah, I would stick to the plan. I would always stick to the plan. I didn't see the video on it was the beginning of the live stream. So maybe you came in later and you might have missed the beginning of the live stream when I was talking about what we're trying to accomplish. Can you explain chase? I'm new. Chasing is just the word I use instead of using the word addiction, because when you use that word too often in a video, YouTube slaps you on the wrist. So chasing just means that you're out of control with food and you're not in control of what you're eating. And your pleasure pathway is engaged, basically. Because when your pleasure pathway is engaged, you're not controlling things. The same thing like when someone is drinking excessively, they are not deciding to drink 17 drinks in a night. Their body is they're just pushed and pulled, right? Same thing with any substance that we overdo. Yeah, sugar cravings is another way of saying the same thing. Thank you, Mercedes Lopez, for putting that in the chat. And that was the last comment. So I had a great time today. Next Monday, I will be back at 11:20 with a new live stream for you and more information on the new community, I hope. I would love for you guys to just, let's see, we've been there, done that. The book, The Pleasure Trap. Okay. Yeah. So definitely we've all been there, myself included, right? We've all been there. To my dismay, they trick us into being there. That's the reason for these videos, because I don't want another young person to be tricked into being there. That which means that we need to tell our children and grandchildren so that they don't get tricked into being there, because we need to stop it at the level of child if we're going to stop this. Because by the time you're past the age, I would say, of most people, 7, 8, they're already addicted, they're already in it, they're already stuck. So we need our children coming out the gate to be fed properly. So this is my goal in life. I'll try to be there. Oh, I'm glad this. If you're there next Thursday at 11:20 Eastern time, I'll be very happy to see you in the chat, William. I look forward to that. I look forward to all of you being at the next live stream, 11:20. And it's okay that you're late. You can watch the replay. I hope that it has some good information, and I'll be looking out for your comments in the comment section. You were at a Remembrance Day service. Well, that's a good reason to be late. So I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, it's Remembrance Day. Happy Remembrance Day to everybody. Completely forgot about that. I hope everybody has a great day, and I hope that this video helps you to stay on track. Right? What a great way to celebrate by eating properly and making sure you're as healthy as possible, so that we can make sure that we take care of our world properly. Right? A lot of people have fought for our world to be good, and we need to, let's take care of ourselves so our world can stay good. See you guys next week. Have a good rest of your day.